While the whole world was focused on the battery range and charging speeds of Tesla, BYD, and other EV companies, Mercedes quietly made a move behind the scenes that has shaken the auto industry. Without much fanfare or a major event, Mercedes has confirmed that the YASA Flux motor is no longer a rumor, but a reality. And this is where the story gets truly interesting, because this isn't just a new motor. It's considered a gamicker that could completely overturn the entire EV paradigm. Now, imagine an engine that is smaller, lighter, and yet delivers more power. What would that mean? This is the question on every auto expert's mind today. It's said that the YASA Flux motor works in a completely different way than traditional electric motors. And Mercedes sees it not just as an upgrade, but as the backbone of the future. The most surprising thing is that Mercedes had been working on this technology for quite some time, but it has only now been officially revealed. Does Mercedes intend to directly challenge Tesla's lead with this engine? Can this technology simultaneously transform the price, performance, and design of EV cars? In this video, we will gradually peel back the layers to reveal Mercedes' true strategy. What is it about the YASA Flux motor that is making the entire industry restless? And why is it being said that this is just the beginning? So stay tuned until the end of the video, because the real twist is yet to come. And before we move on, please subscribe to the channel so you can be the first to see videos like this. What exactly is YASA? When the name YASA first comes up, most people think it's just another company that makes ordinary electric motors. But the truth is, YASA is not just a name, but a way of thinking that forces the entire world of electric vehicles to be viewed from a different perspective. Simply put, YASA is not one of those companies that first looks at the market and then develops the technology. This is a company that first understands the problem and then comes up with a solution that leaves everyone else behind. YASA was founded in the UK, and its roots are not in a large business conglomerate, but in a university lab. YASA was built on an engineering mindset, where the question wasn't, what does the market want? But rather, how can we make electric motors better? At that time, most companies were focused on making motors slightly lighter or slightly faster. But YASA thought completely differently. They said, why not change the very design of the motor? This is where YASA sets itself apart from other motor companies. Most electric motors are cylindrical, long, and take up a lot of space in a vehicle. But the technology YASA worked on is commonly called a flux motor, which is flat, almost like a disc. Now, you might think, what difference does changing the shape make? But that's where the real magic happens. A flat motor means less space, less weight, and more power in the same space. YASA's focus has always been on one thing, the power-to-weight ratio. That is, the lighter the motor, the more power it delivers. In layman's terms, if two motors deliver the same power, but one weighs half as much, then that motor is better in every way. A lighter motor reduces the weight of the vehicle, increases the range, improves handling, and enhances performance. YASA made this philosophy its identity. This is why YASA never participated in the race to mass-produce cheap motors. Their focus has always been on high performance, premium, and advanced motors. They knew that if the technology was right, the right partners would come to them, and that's exactly what happened. YASA's motors were initially used in supercars and high-end projects, where every kilogram of weight and every millisecond counts. Another thing that sets YASA apart is their approach. This company doesn't believe in making a lot of noise, no big advertisements, no new announcements every year. They quietly conduct research and testing for years, and only when the technology is fully ready do they present it to the world. That's why when a major company partners with YASA, the industry understands that it's not just an experiment, but a serious plan. YASA is also considered different from other motor companies because it doesn't just think about selling motors. It thinks at the system level how the motor, battery, cooling, and control software can all work together optimally. This means they don't just manufacture a single part, but design the motor, keeping the entire vehicle's performance in mind. Today, when the competition in the world of electric vehicles is no longer limited to just range or charging, but has extended to performance, efficiency, and design, the importance of a company like YASA automatically increases. This is why when a brand like Mercedes is associated with this name, people understand that it's not a small step. What is a flux engine? Whenever the term flux engine or flux motor comes up, most people immediately think of something highly technical and incomprehensible. But the truth is, if explained in simple terms, the concept of a flux motor isn't that difficult. In reality, this motor isn't some kind of magic powered by electricity, but rather a different way of arranging and utilizing components. The difference lies more in the approach than in the technology itself. First, let's understand what a typical electric motor looks like. The motors used in most electric vehicles today are usually long and cylindrical, like a water bottle standing upright. In this type of motor, the power rotates in one direction, and it requires a considerable amount of space to fit into the vehicle. This is why such motors largely dictate the design of the car, where the battery goes, where the motor sits, and how the other parts are arranged. Now, this is where the flux motor comes in. If you understand the flux motor using a simple analogy, it's not like a bottle, but rather like a flat plate or disc that is not long but wide and thin. Now, you might be wondering, what difference does changing the shape make? The difference is significant. A flat motor means it can be fitted in many different places in the car. Sometimes near the wheels, sometimes under the floor, sometimes directly near the drive system. This gives engineers more freedom in designing the vehicle. Now, let's talk about power. People generally think that bigger things are more powerful, but the flux motor breaks this notion. This motor can deliver more power despite being smaller and lighter in size. In layman's terms, it's like a small engine, but with a lot of pulling power. The direct benefit of this is that the car accelerates faster, overtaking is easier, and the driving feels smoother. One major difference between traditional motors and flux motors is that flux motors convert electricity into power much more efficiently. This means that a larger portion of the electricity from the battery is used to directly power the vehicle, rather than being wasted as heat. This in turn puts less strain on the battery. And when the battery is under less strain, the range naturally improves. For the average person, this simply means the car will travel further on a single charge. Consider another simple point. If the motor is lighter, the entire vehicle will be lighter. A lighter vehicle means less energy is required, resulting in better mileage or range and less wear and tear on parts like tires and brakes. In other words, the flux motor doesn't just change the motor, it changes the entire vehicle's performance. Now, the question arises, if the flux motor is so good, why isn't every company using it? The answer is simple. Because it's not easy to manufacture, it requires extremely precise design, expensive manufacturing processes, and extensive testing. This is why most companies are still sticking with older, tried and tested motor designs. But companies that are preparing for the future are moving towards technologies like the flux motor. This is where companies like YASA come into the picture. YASA didn't just keep the flux motor as a theoretical concept. They made it reliable and production-ready. That's the biggest achievement. Many technologies look good on paper, but don't perform well on the road. The flux motor has now reached a stage where it can be used in everyday vehicles. Small size, big power. Why this is the real game. When it comes to small size, big power, most people are skeptical at first glance. The common belief is that bigger means more power. But the YASA Flux engine breaks this old notion. This engine is small and lightweight, but it delivers significantly more power. And that's why it's being called the real gamaker in the EV world today. Simply put, the first advantage of a smaller engine is the benefit it brings to car design. Traditional electric motors take up a lot of space, forcing engineers to make compromises when designing a vehicle. But the Flux engine is flat and compact, allowing it to be fitted into the car more intelligently. This means the car's floor can be lower, there's more space in the cabin, and the design becomes more flexible. The car looks sleek and sporty from the outside, and occupants feel a greater sense of spaciousness inside. Now, let's talk about weight. The lighter the car, the better it performs. This rule applies to both petrol and electric vehicles. The Flux engine's lightweight design reduces the overall weight of the car. This reduction in weight directly impacts the range, improves handling, and provides more controlled braking. This means the driver feels more confident while driving. Now for the real question, how does such a small engine deliver so much power? The answer is very simple. The Flux engine utilizes power more efficiently. In a conventional motor, some energy is wasted as heat, while in the Flux engine, that same energy is directly used to propel the car forward. Less waste, more benefit. Less waste, more benefit. In layman's terms, it's like getting more mileage with less fuel. And this is where the new rule of performance begins. The biggest characteristic of electric vehicles is the instant torque. The Flux engine takes this even further. As soon as you press the accelerator, the car moves forward without any delay, whether in city traffic or overtaking on the highway. The response is instantaneous. That's why cars with Flux engines are more fun to drive. When it comes to speed, the Flux engine is not just fast, but also smooth. It delivers continuous and controlled power without sudden jolts. The advantage is that even though the car is fast, it doesn't feel tiring. The driver experiences less stress on long journeys, and the car feels more reliable. Now let's talk about efficiency, which is most important these days. The Flux engine makes better use of the electricity from the battery. This means the same battery, the same charge, but greater range. And it's not just about range. It also impacts battery life. When the motor runs cooler and puts less strain on the battery stays in good condition for longer. Direct impact on the battery changes in both range and lifespan. Whenever electric vehicles are discussed, the conversation almost always revolves around the battery. How big the battery is, how quickly it charges, and how far it can go on a single charge. But very few people understand that the battery's performance depends not only on the battery itself, but also equally on the motor. And this is where a better motor, especially a Flux motor like YASA, completely changes the game. Simply put, the relationship between the battery and the motor is like that of the human heart and body. If the body functions properly, the heart is under less strain. Similarly, if the motor uses electricity more intelligently, the battery doesn't have to work as hard. In traditional motors, a portion of the electricity from the battery is often wasted as heat. This means the battery drains faster and also gets hotter. But better and more efficient motors, like Flux motors, put the electricity directly to work. Less heat, less waste, and greater efficiency. The first benefit of this is an increased driving range. That is, with the same battery and the same charge, the car can travel more kilometers. For the average person, this means something very simple. Less worry about frequent charging. Now, let's talk about battery life, which matters most in the long run. In electric vehicles, the battery gradually weakens, especially when it has to withstand high stress repeatedly. Fast acceleration, heavy loads, and inefficient motors. All of these tire the battery quickly. But when the motor is lightweight, efficient, and operates intelligently, the battery is under less stress. As a result, the battery remains in better condition for years. In other words, a better motor not only increases today's range, but also reduces worries for the next 5 to 7 years. This is the difference between a smart purchase and a hasty one. Now, connected to this point is the second big question. What exactly is Mercedes' real strategy? From the outside, it seems that Mercedes is simply making its luxury electric cars even better. But the truth goes far beyond that. Mercedes-Benz has never been just a car manufacturing company. They believe in control. Control over technology, control over quality, and control over the direction of the future. In the era of petrol and diesel, this control came from the engine and gearbox. Now, in the EV era, that same control will come from the motor and software. If a company buys motors from an external supplier, it becomes completely dependent on that technology. If the supply stops, prices increase or there are delays in technology. The entire car production line is affected. Mercedes doesn't want to take this risk. That's why it wants to gain control over its own motor technology. This decision isn't just for today's cars, but for the coming decade. When the EV market becomes even more crowded, the real difference will be in the company that possesses its own core technology. Mercedes knows that luxury isn't just about leather seats or a large screen. True luxury is what you feel while driving. A quiet motor, smooth power delivery, and reliable range. Why is this a wake-up call for Tesla and BYD? Whenever a major technological advancement enters the world of electric vehicles, its impact isn't limited to just one company. The pressure directly falls on the companies that are already leading the race. This is exactly what has happened with the confirmation of the YASA Flux motor. From the outside, it might seem like just a technical upgrade for Mercedes. But internally, it's a wake-up call for giants like Tesla and BYD. Let's understand why Tesla and BYD have both been controlling the EV game in their own ways. Tesla has been known for performance, software, and motor efficiency. BYD, on the other hand, has excelled in battery technology, cost control, and mass production. So on one side, there's technological dominance, and on the other, a game of price and scale. But the YASA Flux motor could completely change the playing field. Until now, the competition was about who offers more range, who charges faster, and who can build cheaper EVs. But with the Flux motor, the competition is shifting to where motor quality becomes paramount. If a company can deliver more power, better efficiency, and longer battery life with a lighter motor, then the focus shifts beyond just range or price. The challenge for Tesla is growing because its greatest strength has so far been its motor and drivetrain. If a company like Mercedes starts offering the same level of, or in some cases even better driving feel through Flux motors, Tesla's image as a technology leader could take a hit. This is especially true in the premium segment, where customers look not just at specifications, but at the overall driving experience. The pressure on BYD is slightly different. Strengths of BYD have been its in-house battery production, scale, and low costs. But if technologies like the Flux motor reduce the strain on the battery and extract more range from the same battery size, the economics of battery size and cost could change. This means that simply winning by installing larger batteries will no longer be as easy. Another major shift is that the competition is moving from how many EVs are being sold to how much better are the EVs being built. If Mercedes starts offering a smoother, quieter, and more reliable driving experience with the Flux motor, premium customers might start looking beyond Tesla or BYD, and customer trust is a huge factor in the EV market. It's also important to understand another point. Both Tesla and BYD are companies that make quick decisions. If a technology like the Flux motor proves successful, these companies will also be under pressure to either further advance their motor technology or move in a new direction. This means the competition will no longer be just about market share, but about the pace of innovation. The EV race is no longer a 100-meter sprint, but a marathon. The company that chooses the right technology for the long haul will be the one that survives. The Flux motor is a turning point in this marathon, where many old advantages could suddenly become less significant. Which Mercedes cars might feature this engine first? When it comes to the question of which Mercedes car might feature the YASA Flux motor first, the answer isn't simply naming a single model, but understanding Mercedes' thinking and strategy. Mercedes never introduces new technology directly into its mainstream models. It first tests it where performance matters most and where customers are more receptive to new innovations. The first and most logical name that comes to mind is Mercedes-AMG. AMG has always been Mercedes Test Lab. The technology that appears in AMG models today eventually makes its way into regular Mercedes cars. The compact size, lightweight, and immense power of the Flux engine. These qualities perfectly align with AMG's philosophy. AMG customers are those who demand rapid acceleration, instant torque, and sporty driving. Now imagine if an AMG electric car is already fast, and then it gets a Flux engine. What would happen? The car would become lighter, the power would feel even more potent, and the driving experience would be even more aggressive. This is why it's believed that the Flux engine will first appear in an AMG performance EV. Next comes the second level, Mercedes high-performance, electric sedan, and SUV lineup. These are models from the EQ series which are already premium and technology-focused. The customers of these cars don't just look for comfort. They want their EV to stand out from the rest. The Flux engine can make a significant difference here. A quieter drive, smoother power delivery, and better range, all without increasing the battery size. Another important point is the future platform. Mercedes is working on completely new EV platforms for the future, where everything will be designed from scratch with EVs in mind. The Flux engine fits even better on such platforms because its compact design gives engineers complete freedom. There are fewer compromises regarding where to place the battery, where to fit the motor, and how big to make the cabin. Now the question arises, why won't Mercedes introduce it directly into mainstream cars? The answer is very simple. New technology is first introduced where price is not a major constraint. In the AMG and premium EV segments, customers are willing to pay more if they get something different and better. This gives Mercedes two advantages. First, the opportunity to test the technology in the real world. Second, time to gradually reduce costs. Once the Flux engine proves itself in premium and performance cars, the same technology can then reach mid-range and mainstream EV. This has been Mercedes' long-standing approach, first in the flagship models, then trickling down. Price and impact on the average customer, dream or reality. Whenever a new and advanced technology emerges, the first question that arises is, will it reach the common man, or will it remain just a dream for expensive cars? The same question is on everyone's mind with the YASA Flux engine. From the outside, it seems that such a high-tech motor will be limited to premium and luxury cars. But if we look at history, the picture looks a little different. Almost every major automotive technology started with expensive cars. Airbags, ABS, automatic gears, even touchscreens first appeared in luxury cars. But as production increased, the technology became better understood and costs decreased. The same features reached mainstream vehicles. The Flux motor is expected to follow the same path currently. This technology will certainly be seen only in expensive EVs. The reason is clear. It's not easy to manufacture, and its production requires considerable precision. But as major brands adopt it, the scale increases and costs come down. Then this technology can gradually reach mid-range. For the average customer, this will mean that in the coming years, they will get the same performance and efficiency that is currently only available in expensive cars. Now the question is, will the average EV customer be willing to pay more for this? The answer is somewhat experience-driven. If the customer clearly sees that their car is offering more range, the battery is degrading slower, and the driving experience is smoother, they might consider paying a little more, especially if it leads to lower costs in the long run. Now, let's look towards the future, the next 5 to 10 years. If technologies like Flux motors become commonplace, the EV industry could be completely transformed. The first change will be in the size and weight of the motor. Cars will become lighter, designs will be more flexible, and range will improve without increasing battery size. The second major change will be seen in the supply chain. Today, the EV industry is largely dependent on certain raw materials and designs. If motors become more efficient, the dependence on batteries might decrease slightly. This will give companies the opportunity to control costs and explore new alternatives. The third and most interesting change will be in the technology race. Until now, the EV race has revolved around batteries. Who will offer more range? Who will charge faster? That's been the focus of the discussion. But with the advent of technologies like Flux motors, the competition could shift to motors, software, and the driving experience. This means that EVs will no longer be just a game of numbers, but something to be experienced. If you enjoy in-depth and insightful EV stories, subscribe to the channel now. Here, we focus on real change, not just hype. Subscribing will ensure you're among the first to see the biggest automotive news.